Oh, I think we got you on mute for me.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep. All right, good. Yep. All right. This is Founder Fridays. I was saying this is Founder Fridays. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is pitch edition of Founder Fridays. We're gonna try to give you guys as much game as possible on how to pitch your businesses, how to tell your story, how to do it in a way that you can connect with investors, that you can win pitch competitions, and ultimately connect with clients. It's all about the story that you tell, and it's all about how you describe and how you talk about your business. I have seen some people that have had not so great businesses, but they know how to tell the story really, really, really well. And they'll get buyers, they get clients, they get investors, they get, just because they know how to tap into the art of pitching. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we got some really, really, really cool guests. We're going to introduce them in a second, but as usual, let's like the chat up. Make sure you guys connect with one another, talk about any questions that you might have. Make sure that you throw it in there, and we'll make sure that we get to it, over the next, 45 so minutes while we are connecting with one another. All right, so our two guests today, we have, we're gonna go with Sheila first. Devon, ladies first.
All good.
I'm sure you won't mind. I know your
Won't mind.
grandmama taught you just like my grandmama taught me. So we're gonna do a quick introduction of our panelist here, who's going to give us a lot of game. So Miss Sheila, if you could take a minute and just tell us about yourself, your background, and just what value you're looking to add today as we talk about pitching.
Sure. So obviously I've loved being here these past few weeks. It's been awesome. So many great people on here. It's like so inspiring, right? So I'll give you a little bit about my background. When I was 14, I started delivering newspapers and working in a pizza shop. And fast forward, I spent a long time in the culinary world. And what did I do in the culinary world? I was a chef. I ran big restaurants. I ran big hotels. And then halfway through, I got my degree in biology and chemistry and degree in food science. When I got that, I ended up leaving the restaurant business and going to work for Nestle's in corporate America. And that was when I really started my first pitch. I was a traveling application chef, and my job was to sell our ingredients. So I really had to think very strategically about what I was doing. I had to think about our customer, what they needed from me, why they needed it. Fast forward my career, I went to Camel Soup. I was a product developer for about 11 years. I learned a lot about CPG business, consumer products goods business, then into corporate Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas. I ran the private brands business. I ran an $8 billion division for Walmart. And every single day I had suppliers come in. These are business owners or executive team members. They would come in and they would pitch their products to us, either for immediately onto the modular schedules. That's the space and name in the retail stores, or they would be pitching to us for long-term plans. So we watched a lot of great pitches. We watched a lot of people fumble the ball, and I think like it's been very interesting. So my next journey was I came up here to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I took over a mid-sized food company, about $500 million food company. And I got back into the pitch space. I was pitching to Taco Bell and Burger King and all kinds of different companies. So there's a lot of wins and a lot of moments where I kind of fumbled the ball. So hopefully tonight I'll be able to share some things with you. On a side note, I'm a TEDx speaker coach, so I've really been crafting the message for people and trying to get that message straight with clarity. So happy to be here tonight and give you a little bit of background, and hopefully I can help you.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Appreciate that background. I think that she brings a lot of complexity and insight to this conversation, especially having heard pitches literally from around the world, because everybody was trying to get on the shelves of a Walmart. And so, being able to have that kind of visibility, I think is going to be awesome as we get into this pitch discussion. And footnote, Sheila already had a really good conversation helping one of the HBCU founders that came through this network, you know, who was trying to think about or get some insight on what she needs to be thinking about to get on the shelves of a big box and just how that looks. So Sheila was already able to add a lot of value to the ecosystem by helping one of our HBCU founders. All right, Devon, my man, you are up, sir. Give everybody a little bit of background about the things that you guys are doing over there at UNCF, maybe a little bit of your background. You come from the HBCU space, so I know you got a heart for these founders. But yeah, break it down for us. Let us know what you're doing and what value you're hoping to add to this community today, and then we'll jump in.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much, Jermaine. And Sheila, impressive background. Great. I'm still excited from the conversation we had earlier this week. My name is Devon Corbin, everyone. I'm the inaugural director for the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the United Negro College Fund, or UNCF. I'm actually in the office today because I have a meeting not too far from here right after, or an event I'm going to actually right after, with a great storyteller by the name of Ali Sadiq. So if you're familiar with his comedy specials, I'm really excited about that. But my personal and professional background, I am the son of two entrepreneurs, right? So both my mom and my dad owned their own businesses, so they were able to instill with me the entrepreneurial journey before I even knew what it was, right? I had the opportunity to see the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, and all of the in between of a founder before going into my own institution. So I actually attended Claflin University for my undergraduate experience, have a degree in marketing. That degree in marketing spanned me into different roles within sales. Outside of selling for my dad's business and doing some door-to-door sales prior to college, I got into tech sales, nonprofit sales, startup sales, right? So all of the things in between. I think I've touched pretty much every industry outside of healthcare, but I did sell into healthcare. So just to give you that insight, I think that the storytelling piece of the conversation tonight is near and dear to my heart, because as a sales professional, you're always trying to figure out how to get to your end user, i.e. the corporations or companies or customers that actually want to buy your product or service. So I've been fortunate enough over the last decade to do different roles leading up to the role that I'm in now. The way I got into the actual realm of entrepreneurship, once again, both of my parents are entrepreneurs, but I did get a master's degree in education entrepreneurship from the University of Penn. So I'm an HBCU grad, but also an Ivy League grad, and it was an opportunity for me to actually step in and do what I ran away from for so many years. So happy to be here today. Happy to lead to the conversation. I judge a lot of pitch competitions. I've helped a lot of founders because I own my own nonprofit called the E-Suite, where I actually do consulting work for small business owners as well. So happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. And one other thing, thank you so much, Devon. So one other thing I'll throw in from a pitch sort of standpoint is, and some people may know this already. So I run a tech company, and we just raised our A round this year. Not A round, our seed round this year. And we started that process in January, right as SVP, the bank, and First Republic, the other bank, was going out of business. Right as Sam Bankman-Fried was stealing everybody's crypto money, and all these different things that were happening that was messing up the financial markets, we decided that we're going to raise money right at the beginning of the year when all that stuff, right before all that stuff started happening. So like the money raising year was tough, but this was when we started to raise our seed round. So from a pitching standpoint, I'm on the other side. Well, I've actually had to do the pitching. I'm like Sheila, had to get into the pitching posture this year in 2023. And to raise so we raised like $1.2 million on our seed. We just closed it like a month ago, like 3 weeks ago. And I know I probably pitched to 175 VCs to raise that $1.2 million because it was so tough this year. So, thank you. But I mean, it was just some days it was just back to back, nothing but pitching. And so I'm hoping to learn something and maybe even hopefully add something to the conversation today. But man, pitching is tough, and you have got to get it down pat. If you don't do a great pitch, that is the end of of the investors listening to anything that you have to say, and they know whether you know what you're talking about in the first 30 seconds of the pitch, but I'm sure we'll get into that in a minute. So, all right. So first and foremost, I think we can break this conversation down into probably two different buckets. And I was talking about this with you guys earlier this week. So one side is the business side. So the stuff that the business that we need to be talking about or thinking about as far as what does our business do? How do we talk about that? How do we describe that part of it? Then the other side of it is the entrepreneur themselves. And I feel like that's a piece of it that, you know, a lot of times we talk a little less about. You know, I think it's more about, you know, the business, but you know, the investor the entrepreneur makes a big difference in whether somebody's going to invest their money, time, or resources in this particular investor. So let's start on the business side of things. What would you all say? And please, guys, if you got questions, throw them in the chat. Do a little hand raise and we'll get these questions in. But from a business standpoint, the title of it is I got a story to tell. What kind of story, or from the storytelling standpoint, do entrepreneurs need to be thinking about as they're pitching their business? And, you know, I'd love to hear from both of you all.
Devon, go ahead and kick us off. We had a great conversation the other day, and this is exactly what we were talking about. It's a split, right?
Thank you, Sheila.
Awesome.
It is wonderful. I'll be, I guess, as short as I possibly can. Right. I talked to a bunch of founders and a bunch of individuals who have ideas. Right. I won't call them founders until their ideas are flourished out there, but it's in their heart, it's in their head. Right. The one thing that always sticks out to me about their journey is that before they actually get into actually the storytelling of their journey, they'll always talk about, you know, why they started their business. Right. It's not just the problem that they're trying to solve. It's not just the solution that they're offering, but how do they engage with their audience? Some things that I think about is like they really do a great job at clarifying the problem, right, and the solution, right? Simplify a complex issue for your end user, whether that be investor, whether that be a customer, and then actually showing the triumphs with you in your business already. Also, the main thing that me and Sheila was discussing was your name is your brand, right? So as a founder, right, you want to actually be able to make sure that your brand, your name, and the passion that brand that comes with it, how do you actually make that a unique mission, unique value, and unique vision for your business? Some of those things they differentiate you from other competitors, other people in the market very early on. And then the other piece that I would say is like humanizing the data. So often we hear that data is just dry at times, right? The numbers, it doesn't really quite illustrate what you're actually trying to say. You throw up all these charts, all these graphs, right? Humanize that data to say, okay, this is exactly why this is the impact that I'm actually going to show. So those are just some things that I think that stands out specifically for individuals who actually are trying to build their brand and build their business up.
Awesome. You want to jump in, Sheila?
Yeah, I think it's simple, right? Like if you're creating a product, you need to know why you created it. Like, what is that opportunity? How did you find the opportunity? How did you create the product or the idea that's connected to it? Where was that space? You know, like I've seen products come to me and they're duplicates of somebody else's stuff. Okay, if that's a duplicate, what's the differentiation? What is the reason that I'm going to invest in this, right? What is the reason I'm going to put my money into the product? Knowing the why of you did this, where you found that slice of opportunity. Once you've figured out where that opportunity is, explain to them how you found it. Like, I think that's really important because if it's like one slice of the pie, they might not know the left and right side of it, right? So I'll give you a short example. There was a product that Dove created, which was a moisturizer used in the shower. When they came to pitch that product to me, that's a big, huge company pitching that product. I was like, wait, what? You're going to put this lotion on in the shower? So what they had done is they'd taken all of the data, the moisturizers, when people apply it, why they apply it, and they sliced it down to a fraction of a couple of seconds in the shower. And they said, here's the opportunity. Before a person gets out of the shower, their pores are open. Let's put the moisturizer on right there. Basically, that was a killer idea because no one had done that. So when you're creating your product or you're coming up with your idea, really be laser focused of where the customer or consumer is going to be using that. If you are not sure, if you're not sure, you need to take a pause. You need to be able to deliver that really clearly. Like, I buy gas at the gas station, period. Right? Like, so simple, so clear.
I love that. I love that. So it sounds like, kind of kicking us off, and I love where both of you all are going, is you got to get locked into your why. You got to get locked into your why. Why are you doing what it is that you're doing? And I like what Sheila just said. It has to be clear and concise. I like the example. I buy gas from the gas station. So I started a gas station, type of thing. I love that. It has to be really, 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 really clear. And so one thing that I said early on, just kind of going through my own example, is that when you're pitching, a lot of times, and this goes to a question that just came up in the chat with Keontae, a lot of times you get right on, and investors or the people on the other side, when you're pitching, know right away whether you're going to be a good fit or not, and a lot of times it's because you only have a short window of time to really captivate the people and really get them excited about what it is that you're doing. Not saying you got to get up and do backflips, although I've seen pictures where people do it. But you've got to be able to captivate them at some point. So Keontae, along that vein, asked a good question for both of you all. What is one of the most memorable openings from a pitch that you guys have heard, or something that comes to your mind as far as an opening, how somebody has started and kind of really grabbed the room type of thing?
I'll start. One of the most memorable pitches that I'm sitting here right now remembering it just like that was the bad pitch. Okay. We had a guy come in. He had whey powder that he was trying to pitch to us. Small company, brand new in the space, trying to carve out his niche. He had this amazing PowerPoint slide that was like 800 slides. He spent so much time talking about his manufacturing plants. Okay. Hold that, put a pin in that. His manufacturing plants, that we ran out of time to taste the product. Okay.
Oh,
now, why is that important? He's selling the product. He spent so much time talking about the manufacturing plants. Let's just be clear. I have a lot of experience in manufacturing. I already know all about manufacturing plants. All you need to do is tell me where your plants are. Tell me what they supply. I got it, right? My experience. So why am I sharing that with you? You have to be aware of what the person's experience is on the other side of the table, because you're wasting your time telling them something that they already are very educated about. So here's this guy, man. He had this great whey product. It was like 11:55 and I'm walking out the door, right? I'm done at 12. He's like, "Can you stay? Can you stay? Can you stay?" Now, of course, I'm a kind person, right? So I was like, "Yeah, I can stay. I can help you." And I coached him. "Hey, next time you come, you're going to be presenting to the merchants. Let's flip the switch here. Show them their product first. Then tell them all about the supply chain, the manufacturing, all that other stuff. Get them with the product first. Then figure out the rest of the details." Again, my most memorable was the failed pitch. That's
nice.
a bad.
Nice. Yeah, you don't want to stick out in people's mind because you did such a bad job pitching your business. And it sounds like this guy here really kind of messed it up. But this is a teachable moment right here, because if we're really thinking about it, if you're wasting your time doing the pitch, you got 3 minutes max, 4 minutes max to really get them involved in what you're talking about. And if you're wasting those valuable minutes, talking about things that aren't connected to your target audience, the people that you're talking to. And again, this goes back to something we'll talk about in a second, which is data, doing your research, knowing the people that you're pitching to. You wasted your opportunity. All right, Devon, jump in.
All right. So the most memorable pitch I've seen or witnessed, I wasn't judging this one, was Afrotech 2018. Is anybody there? There was the winners of the competition that had the greatest hook I've ever seen. Right? They came out and said, "Hey, raise your hand if you have a vagina. Raise your hand if you know someone with a vagina." They hooked the audience so good
Right away.
that everybody was literally in their seats, like, what are they going to talk about? The
Wow.
crowd went crazy, and this is after we just seen Zaytoven make a beat out of thin air. Like they hooked the whole audience, right? And that right there won everyone over, right? We were glued to our seats to figure out what are they going to talk about. And they had a feminine hygiene product. I believe the company was called Clit Health, but it was a wonderful pitch. But the hook was everything.
Wow.
It was legendary. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible. All right. So so now let's rank it on, rank it. I mean, don't have to be like from 1 to 10, but just based on what you guys both said. So one of the most memorable pitches in Sheila's mind is one of the most horrible things that she's seen pitch. One of the ones, and I think that you might be right, because if you ask that question both ways, either you have one or no, like everybody in the audience is going to raise their hand.
Yep.
It instantly gets everybody involved in the pitch. Like, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if you ain't got one, at least you got a mama. And so you came out of one. So it's like, you can't argue with it,
Mhm.
and everything. So, all right. So on the scale, what do you guys feel like, when you have that memorable opening, how important is that? And then we got a good question in the chat from Clay that says, what are you guys listening for as you're listening for a pitch? So when it comes to grabbing the attention of the audience or of the judges or of the investors when you're first getting in, how important is that? Then we'll jump into Clay's question.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I always said you have to have the three elements, right? Which is the hook, the climax, and the call to action, right? And every pitch that I want, that's what I'm looking for. Relatability is going to be key, right? If you can tell me the story and it becomes more relevant to me, the psychological impact. So like, how do you structure the whole that actually holds the audience, but get them involved in the story, right? And then the influence and decision maker. All too often we hear times that like people, they want to be able to use logic and emotions, but tell it to me like Sheila said earlier, so that a fifth grader can understand it. Make it so simple that it's hard for me to turn away from it, right? And then actually with the conflict resolution, many people draw themselves to challenges, but their real story is how you overcame those challenges. And then lastly, I think like building trust and rapport is going to serve you well, because then you can get the responses you need during that call to action because you built the trust over the course of the pitch. And one thing that we got, that I was taught at Penn was we made several different types of pitches, right? So we had a 2-minute pitch, 2 to 3 minute pitch, we had a 5-minute pitch, and then we also had an 8-minute pitch. And that was if we had all the time in the world to really sell our audience. But even in that 2 to 3 minute pitch, we had all those different elements actually in there.
What were those three things, Devon, that you just said, the three things that you're looking for? Because that's like a direct answer to Clay's question. I thought those were really good.
The hook, the climax, and the call to action.
Love it. Love it. So anybody taking notes out there, please write those three things down. I'm putting them in the chat. All right, go ahead, Sheila.
I'm going to actually go back to Devon's incredible vagina thing. Hey, I'm a woman. I'm not shy. Let's peel that back a bit. You said it was a femme hygiene product, right? Okay. You could have stood up there and you could have danced around. The person could have danced around, right? They could have danced around it. They could have pulled back. They could have been reserved. They could have been uncomfortable. A person in the chat earlier said something about confidence. Okay. Be confident, right? Now, they used a very strong hook in a space very well connected to their product. They weren't afraid to do it. Now, you see people oftentimes do the same, be the same, do the same, be the same. It was not going to get you anywhere. You have got to be different, right? Dude Wipes was on Shark Tank a long time ago. Their marketing strategies are off the charts. They know what they're doing, right? So when you've got a product and you are being conservative in the pitch, that could go against you. So I like when people are bold in that moment, when they stop me in my tracks. You know why? I've seen hundreds and hundreds of very boring introductions. The one that steps out is the one that wins, right? I'll just share this real quick. I did a sustainability presentation at Walmart. End of the day, 800 people, all these different countries, everyone's asleep. My job was to wake them up. I shoved PowerPoint presentations into this chewer upper and pulled out toilet paper at the backside, right? Everyone was on their seats. I did something risky, but very well aligned to the speech and content that I was doing. When you are standing there and you're trying to figure it out, be bold and be brave and confident in the message that you're sending. Just connect it very well, your product to the pitch, and you'll have a home run.
I love what you just said. So you got to repeat. Well, you don't have to repeat it, but you said be bold, be confident, and be different. Those are the
Yeah,
three.
absolutely.
So you guys both had three good things that we need to write down. So be bold, be confident, be different, and then the hook, the climax, and the call. Man, this is some real game. If anybody is on the line thinking about how to pitch your business better, this is some real game and some real jewels being dropped right now. All right, Keontae, jump in.
Yeah. So I did want to pinpoint real quick because I love what all of y'all saying, and so I wanted to pinpoint this because when we think about like the hook, the climax, the call to action, y'all had expanded, especially on knowing your audience. And so it's really important, of course, to know that sometimes that hook might have been a big fan favorite somewhere else, but if you go somewhere else and use it, it might not always hit the same. And so I say that to say, literally today, me and Jeff were at DC Startup Week earlier. Guy, they have a pitch competition. Guy comes up and says, "Raise your hand if you smoke weed." And so people, they turn in their heads, either people who lean into the side, like, did he really say that? Or people, they excited. And so all that to say, though, a lot of times that hook may not always react the same way in all locations because, for example, DC, things are still more legal, but people are still a little more conservative, whereas opposed to if you use that hook in like Cali or somewhere, they may have got a greater reaction rather than people who, may have kind of been a little more conservative, like, do I raise my hand? Do I not? And so all that to say too, it's definitely awesome to be bold and to dive straight in, but also be careful of that audience too, because that might have worked well elsewhere, but that might not have flown as well in certain places. So just wanted to pinpoint that. But overall, I love all the gems y'all dropped so far.
That's a good one. And I think that goes back to what Sheila was talking about earlier when she said that, the guy that she gave as her memorable pitch, he came in talking about manufacturing for the good portion of his pitch. And he's sitting in front of somebody who all they do all day is manufacturing. So do you really need to waste that kind of time, going into chapter and verse with somebody with this is what they do all day, every day? So again, knowing your target audience, knowing the people that you're going to be pitching to. If you're pitching to investors, that's one thing that was a headache for us. Pitching to so many investors, sometimes you wouldn't even get the story straight, but we had to know who we were pitching to. We had to know the mission and the vision of each VC company that we were pitching to make sure that it was aligned. We had to know, other things that they've invested in. Do they invest in companies like ours, even if they have a similar mission? Like, these are all things that we had to know going into the pitch, because if not, you really are kind of wasting your time because they're not going to invest in you ultimately if you aren't aligned on these particular things, even if it is a great pitch. So that's a great point, Keontae. All right, so one thing that came up earlier, I'd love to hear you guys speak on. And before we do that, it looks like we got a quick question. What do you do when you don't know who you are investing to pitching to until the moment? Okay, I got it. I guess that's pitching to until the moment. Yeah, there you go. All right. Shelly. So Shelly says, what do you do if you don't know who's in the audience? So it's a type of situation where you can't do research before. Maybe it is a pitch competition. You're not really sure who the judges are, those types of things. How do you handle that situation? Because you can't necessarily prep before. And to Keontae's point, it's good to know who's in the audience if you can, but what if you can't? What would you guys say in that scenario?
Go ahead, Devon.
Yes, I think in that scenario, right, storytelling is going to be key, right? Differentiating your pitch to make sure that you know your story and your journey, right? There's so many different businesses out there doing similar things, solving similar problems, right? You don't know who you're pitching to, but they'll know when you pitch it if they actually want to invest. Some people are not like, they're not going to be invested into you until they believe that you're invested into yourself. Right. So that enthusiasm is going to hold key. Right. Some of those points that you bring up, understanding your competitive landscape, all that different stuff is going to actually be we're going to take you over the edge, right? Outside of the actual what is it called? Problem solution fit, right? Like when you're clearly articulating that problem, that pain point, make sure it's relatable, right? The investor is going to say, hey, I know that person's journey. I understand their journey. I understand their pain point and what they're trying to solve, but it's also relatable because I have, the grandmother to Jermaine's point, right? Who made sure that I had manners, right? They understand that because it's relatable to them. So they're like, okay, I wasn't planning on investing in that company, but now I do. Now I am planning on it because I got to feel that when I was actually listening to their story and make it stand out. I remember one pitch that I heard, and I want to just highlight this one pitch. The student, and it was an alumni of Morgan, and I loved the pitch. It was a great pitch. But they gave me the data. They gave me all the data, all the historical data. They were building a company focused on open kitchens within certain neighborhoods for food scarcity and chefs and all this different stuff, and it was great. But when we got through the pitch, Hassan, who was one of the co-founders, he said, hey, the reason why I did this is because I slept on benches at Morgan State's campus and the security guards would bring me food and they would do all this different stuff. And I was like, that's your pitch, right? Don't throw everything out, but throw that other pitch out, right? That is why we care about your story, right? And it made it relatable because we actually, we can relate being a struggling college student, maybe not having food all the time, oodles and noodles and all those different things. Like, okay, now we understand it, right? But if you have somebody who's, hey, I cook this at home, but I want to mass produce this now, hey, it shows that, hey, you know what? I've been there before, and maybe I want to invest in that company.
So that's a good point. And you know what? It's kind of like a little bit of a oxymoron kind of that you're pulling out here. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this, and maybe you could jump in on this one, Sheila. And then we'll throw it over to Devon. But how important is data in these pitches? I mean, because you do want to give some data, but data is boring. You think about actually pitching, getting somebody to buy into what it is that you're doing. Like you just said with that example, the guy sleeping on the bench, in the middle of the cold, and then, the security guards brought him food. Like, that's a great story that gets people drawn in, so, where does data in a pitch? Now, we know as far as the business is concerned, ultimately, if somebody's going to invest, they got to know the data. You got to know your numbers. You have to know your numbers. Probably be some follow-up questions. You got to know it. But in the course of the pitch, how important is the actual data, or is it all about the storytelling?
So I look at it a few ways. So when Devon and I were talking earlier this week, we were separating the two types in the process. If you already have sales or if you don't, right? And how you can flex your messaging to be that, right? So if you don't have sales, if it's an idea, what are they buying from you? They're buying you, right? They're buying you. And what does that data from you look like? What is your commitment? What is your tenacity? What is your sacrifice? What has the journey been, right? What does that journey look like? Because when you are doing that, you're telling them who they're getting, right? The data is business, but the data is also you. What type of person are you, right? Like, do you show up for work every day? Are they going to have to call you on the phone to come to work? One or the other, right? So when you think about the data, I think of the data in two ways. The actual data like sales, manufacturing, all those KPI things. But then I think of the data of me. So think about it in two ways. Your data. How knowledgeable are you? What is the sacrifices that you made? What's the commitment that you've got? What is your tenacity? What is your determination, right? And what is your resilience? I don't care if you fumble and fall. I don't care because it's going to happen. That is a given in business. I only care that you get back up. You come back in swinging. Hard days, start swinging. So tell me the data. Tell me how many times you failed. Tell me how many times you thought you were going to quit. I thought this was going to be the last thing to knock me out. But you know what? I'm the most resilient person out there. You can punch me in the gut 100 times. I'm still coming back. Blood coming out of my mouth, big swollen eye, cauliflower ear, I'm still coming back. That's the data that they want to hear, right?
I love that. I love that. I love that. And you jumped ahead, Sheila, because we're gonna get to the personal side of it in a second. No, but we're gonna circle back to that one right next, because I think that's the other side of the coin that I think is really, really important to talk about. But I want to throw it to Devon because he gave a really good example on a specific pitch that he heard. So what would be sort of the I guess the dichotomy between the guy sleeping on the bench and the story piece of it and all of the data that he presented during the pitch? You know, what's the critical mass? How do those two things work together to make a good? How would it have worked better to make a good pitch?
So let me use data to dismissify the data, right?
Okay.
Stanford published a business study that said approximately 63% of data is forgotten after a presentation. But in the
Ah,
contrast, stories are
ah,
remembered 65 to 70% of the time with the audience. So I want to say that to say, like, hey, sometimes, for a finance person or a data person, right, the data is going to stand out more, right? But for a person who feels and wants to say, hey, I'm investing with my heart and not just my head, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be looking for that story. And then sometimes, the data, like Sheila's point, is going to come out because of who you are, right? Like we know, like, there's so much data out there about diverse founders. There's so much data about profitability of women-led teams and different things like that. That's the data that's like, okay, it's inherent. It's already in you. We just have to see that it's going to come out when you actually build your business. So some of those things happen naturally in a conversation. And then sometimes it is the profitability, right? It's, hey, show me how profitable you are in 2 years. And believe it or not, when I was building my company and when my mentors and people told me that you may not be profitable for 1 to 2 years, right? It's just the nature of the business, but you have to show that you're actually growing and that you have a plan, a strategy to build a profit, right? And to make a profit, right? And maybe if for the first 2 years, you're not able to hire a full-time employee, you're having to hire individual contractors for some of the work that you have to do. That's going to be, that's a part of the financial piece, and those nuggets that people are looking for, because you know your business then, right? You know what you're up against.
I love that. Man, I had to put that in the chat. That was good. You just told me something right there. 60% of data is forgotten after a presentation. That is a dope statistic that everybody pitching a business needs to know. So when it comes to pitches, it sounds like what you guys are saying is when it comes to pitches that are heavy data, that is not something that's going to resonate with the people who are listening to your pitch. Not saying you can't have any data, but you got to be able to tell the story. And if you weave some data in as you're doing that, it has to be in the context of what that story is and how it relates to the people that you're talking to. Oh, that is dope, man. That is dope. And Sheila put plan to profit. So the plan to profit piece of it is a good one too. Amazon is a really good story for that because they weren't profitable for years and years and years and years, but it was on purpose. They did it on purpose. Like what's his name? Jeff Bezos said, we can't be profitable right now because we're growing the business too fast. And our plan is growth right now, not profitability. And so that was a company strategy that they had to not be profitable at the time, although they could have. So, that look up the Amazon case study if you don't know. It's a really, really, really good one to read. But when it comes to you and your business, to Devon's point, you may have to spend some time in the streets where your business is not profitable and you are grinding. It seems like is going out but never coming in. Like every business spends a period of time where it's like that. But keying in on what Sheila said and taking it to the next level, how are you resilient? How are you able to bounce back from that? How are you able to manage that situation to take your business to the next level? All right. Here we go. Shelly said, what is the best way to talk about your plan strategy for growth within a pitch? Yes. All right. Is it always just hiring someone? Okay. So she had a really good question in the pitch. Hopefully I'm hitting it right, Shelly, this time. But what's the best way to talk about the growth plan strategy? We're talking about Amazon, and everything like that. I'll throw my 2 cents in, which is just that investors specifically, they just want to see a plan. So if you have a plan for growth, or if you have a plan for profitability, you have a plan for whatever it is, they just need to know what it is. So if you tell an investor, and this is on the VC side, and this is just because I've been pitching to them all year, and I've pitched almost 200 of them, and this is literally our plan. I say, hey guys, we're not going to be profitable for the next 3 years because we're growing. We 17x our business, our tech company, over the last 12 months. And a lot of people don't know that, but that's why we were able to raise money this year, because we 17x over the last 12 months. And so we're able to show that and say, hey guys, we're growing right now. We're not even concerned with profitability. We need you guys to keep dumping money on us so we can keep growing fast. We'll talk about profitability in 3 years. The VCs are okay with that, because we have a plan and we're able to show the roadmap of what we're trying to do. But I'd love to hear you guys feedback on what Shelly asked. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start, and then Devon, I'll pass it over to you. I think when I think about any business, first thing I want to make sure is you're managing your expenses well. That is, if you are just taking money and blowing it out the door, that's going to be a scary moment for me. So when we talk about your growth or your strategy for growth, it's an expense management, an intelligent utilization of injecting money in, and what is the purpose of it? What is going to be the return, anticipated return? We all know that when you got that plan, and Jermaine, you said it great, it has to be a plan. Every CEO I've ever gone into, I'm on the pitch side now, right? I'm on the pitch, right? I'm pitching to Taco Bell, or I'm pitching to a company in France. They want to know, what are your expenses? What is your Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, year 1, year 2, year 3? What is that growth process going to look like? But not only what does it look like, why is it that way? Why? Like, what is the probability of me actually getting that business? If I create a plan that's full of smoke and mirrors, and they ask me one question, if I know I don't know, I'm going to spill the beans right there. I'm going to lose my confidence because it's built on a sponge. It's not built on cement, right? If I'm like, the probability of me getting this customer or this business or this contract is 100%, they know that's 100% means I have it already in my hand, signed. Other than that, it's 50-50. So you got to go and think about this, right? The growth plan is an expense management. It's a strategic, logical growth, right? That's built on cement, not on a sponge. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, and I piggyback off of what Sheila said. The financials are definitely they're definitely key, right? Those are the numbers that get everybody excited and say, okay, are you profitable? Can you actually make money? What is the hardest part about making money in your business? I will say that, the other pieces that stand out to me are traction and milestones, right? Like what have you achieved up until this point before you're pitching your business? And then the last piece that I think, is the missing link to the story is usually your team, right? You got to discuss the relevant skills of your team, not just their logos and titles, right? Figure out what is actually, what makes up your team, and then actually figure out where are some of the gaps that you may have not seen before, so that way you can actually still think about that piece of the strategy of how you actually plan to attack that portion of your business.
I think there's another piece when we were talking the other day. It's the risk, right?
Yep.
You can't go in without talking about the risk. In my opinion, that helps an investor. What do you think about that, Jermaine? What do you think about talking about the risk there?
I think, and to clarify for everybody, when you say risk, there's going to be some downside. There's going to be some competition. There's going to be other people. If you try to go into any pitch scenario and paint a picture, tell a story that you're the only one out here in all of the world who has this idea, and you're the only person that can come up with the greatest solution of all times, it just becomes not really believable. And so if you can weave into your pitch, something that says, hey, no, guys, here's the competition, but this is what we're thinking about so that we can be different. Or, this is what we're seeing, whatever in the market that could be a potential, bad thing for us, but we've already thought about it. We've identified it. And this is what we're thinking about in order to get around it. Like, those are the things that make investors, that make judges, people who are listening to your pitch think that this is something that is for real. and something that you've thought deeply about, because it's very easy to say that you're the best on the market because you didn't do any research. You didn't click page 2 of the Google search. Everybody just looks on page 1 and says, oh, nobody's doing it. I must be amazing, but go to page 2, page 3, and page 4, and you'll find 200 more people that's trying your idea. So, all right. Aaliyah said, and I think this is a really good question. If you got a 90-second pitch, so we do a 90-second rocket pitch here on Founder Fridays. We're doing our second one next Friday. So everybody on the line, please come ready to pitch next Friday. But we do a 90-second rocket pitch. So in a 90-second rocket pitch, what would you guys recommend somebody thinking about as far as things to talk about in the rocket pitch? It's from a judging standpoint, we say, tell about your business, the idea of it, talk about a little bit about any traction that you have, and then talk a little bit about the competition. And that's what we ask here on Founder Fridays, so that we can understand, the kind of the competitive landscape, who's out there, what's making you different, any traction that you have, even if you're an early stage company, do you have email lists, what's your customer discovery look like, what did you do to get some kind of traction on this idea, and then the idea itself. But we'd love to hear you guys' feedback. If it's a 90-second rocket pitch, you got to really get up there and you got to hit it. What do you guys recommend somebody talk about doing a 90-second rocket pitch?
Go ahead, Devon. I know you had that incremental 2-minute, like all the way through. So go ahead. Let's kind of help them out a little bit.
So with the 90-second rocket pitch, you really want to double down on your why, right? Problem, why, solution. You can dig into differentiation later on, right? But you want to hook them with that, right? This is the problem that I see. This is my solution, and this is why I'm doing it. That's the easiest way I can do it. The easiest way I can break it down in 90 seconds. I love that.
Keep it simple.
That's right. So I'm gonna say this because we went back and forth about this earlier this week. You have 90 seconds. Don't kiss up to 90 seconds. Come in under. Practice, take out words, redo. Practice, take out words, redo. Devon just told you how to set the structure up. What I'm saying to you is, if you haven't practiced this 100 times, you need to practice it 100 times plus. Because every time you go to say it, the clarity, you'll hear your own self saying, oh my God, this is not clear, right? Even I don't know what's going on, right? So go back and think about this, and just keep scratching the words out. I often, when I'm pitching, I write, I practice, I write, I practice, I videotape myself, I listen, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm stumbling around all over here. Get to straight clarity in the messaging. Come in at 85 seconds. That shows that you really are strong because the clarity is so crystal clear, right?
I love that. And what I'm thinking is that in the whole scenario of, we got a little bit of time and we really need to get to, that goes back to both of you all's earlier point of being clear, being concise, getting straight to the point. You know what? If it takes you 5 minutes to just tell me what the idea is, you know what I'm saying? Generally, it ain't that good of an idea. I mean, when you have a really good idea and you're solving a real problem for people, it doesn't even take you that long to say that. You know what I mean? And you all have judged pitches before. If somebody is talking for 6 minutes and you still don't know what they do, how many times have you heard those pitches? They've been talking for 3-4 minutes and you still kind of thinking like, what exactly do you do? Type of thing.
Sometimes, Tremaine, they don't even know the problem when they're doing that, right? That's the thing that pops out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got a couple of minutes left, and you guys have kind of been hitting on it, but I want to ask a real direct question. But before we do that, Sheila asks, what if everybody talks about the team, but what if you're a solopreneur right now? Listen, talk about yourself. Talk about yourself. I had a HBCU student in one of my last classes, and she has a business where she advises people on how to get scholarships and different things like that. She's a solopreneur. She doesn't have a team. But what she talked about when it came to the team section, Shelly, is she said, I started this business because I got $300,000 in scholarships for myself. And I know the landscape of how to get these grants, how to get these scholarships, you know, how to talk to the universities in a way that gets the money and blah, 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 blah. She said, I did it throughout my whole college career, and I've gotten over $300,000 on my own. So now I start this business to tell other people how to do it. Now, she's a solopreneur, but she talked about herself and the expertise she has to do what it is that she's doing. So hopefully that's helpful, Shelly. So last question. All right, because we're coming up on time. Sheila said, so we said it's two sides of the house. We've been talking about the business side. The other side of it is the actual person that's pitching. And I want you guys to talk about what kind of person needs to be standing in front of the judges in order to really, 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 really move the needle. I often say to my students and people that I, you know, judge pitch competitions, all this stuff, is that, you know, investors invest just as much in the entrepreneur as they do in the idea itself, you know, and that's just because when you start a business or start a company, the investor or the people on the other end, they know that it's going to change 10,000 times before it actually gets to market. So you're not really investing in the idea as you're hearing it. You're really more investing in the person that can take it to market, that can go through all the ups and downs and get this idea to the finish line. So that's what I say. What would you guys say is important to think about as far as the entrepreneur itself, the founder? What kind of things do they need to have?
Go ahead, Devon. We talked about this the other day.
I'm gonna pass it right back to you.
All right, then let's go. Let's go. We were like going back and forth about this. We had a great time talking about it. I'm just gonna say this. I want to know that you're gonna carry this on your back. I want to know. Don't stand in front of me and tell me you're half in. Don't tell me you're 75% in. Tell me you're living, breathing this, pumping it every day, and that you are going to carry it on your back. And your determination is just relentless. When you stand up there and you are like, my work ethic, my determination, I slept on the bench, I slept in the street, I slept in the car. Those are the pieces and the parts that separate a person that has a hobby from a person that has a business. You hear people talk about that all the time. All of us that are business owners, we all were sole entrepreneurs at some point, right? It starts first with you until you can get it working. I work harder now in my own business than I did for the companies that I work for. Why? I am so determined to make it work, right? I'm so determined to make it work. I'm going to work Saturday. I'm going to work Sunday. I'm going to work Monday. I'm going to work all the way through. And the first win is going to be that amazing moment, right? So what I'm saying to you guys is resilience, determination, grit. You're the one who's going to work 20 hours a day to make this thing work. You're going to forego some things. You're going to make the sacrifices that you need to make in order to get the business to run. And if it's Monday morning and you wake up and you're like, you know what, it's sunny outside, man. I think I'm going to take a day off. That's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to work. You need to go like, you know what? It's sunny outside. I'm going to spend 2 minutes outside, get my juice, and now I'm going to go in there and get going. That's what they're going to want to hear. And also, I think that one thing that Devon and I were talking about, and I want to make sure that we say this right. We were talking about who funded you so far. We said, hey, I've heard people get up on stage and they say stuff. Well, they say stuff like, my parents gave me a bunch of money. Or they say, I sold shoes on a street corner to make the money that I needed to make the first purchase of the thing I needed to purchase. There's two different kinds of grit in that. So think about that a bit. I'm not saying you can't get money from your parents or your cousins or your relatives or whatever. I'm just saying, when you tell that story, if you're telling that story, you are telling somebody you are 100% determined to pay them back. Right? Right?
I love that. I love that. All right, Devin, you want to throw anything in there, man, to close us out?
I'll close you out with two things, right? Because I just talked to one of my friends, and he's been a founder for 7 years. It's his first company, and he's actually able to walk away from it now and actually still walk away pretty profitable, right? But he sacrificed a lot in his journey, right? He pivoted his business because of a traumatic experience with his family, right? what I'll say is a quote that I always heard from one of my previous colleagues, which was, on the other side of fear is the life you really want, right? So many founders have that imposter syndrome, right? But what I've been hearing lately is, and there's a great message, like I forget the person who said it, right? Is like, let's throw that thing called imposter syndrome away, right? That leave that for people who don't know what the heck they're talking about and don't know what they're building, right? That piece of actually the confidence, that enthusiasm, right? That grit that Sheila had brought up earlier, right? All of those different things, that's going to carry you on. Personal note, I was building my business in 2020, and of course the global pandemic happened and all these different things happened. But my mom passed away mid-year. In that same time frame, I started a graduate program. My son was born 2 weeks after, all while I'm sitting up, and my wife is probably down the hall. She's waiting on me right now. She can tell you I stayed up, countless nights building my business because I had that much passion and I didn't take any excuses, right? And that's the same thing that I pull from any of the founders that I talk to. Like, how much are you willing to sacrifice? Whether it's actually sacrificing or it's going to happen to you, because in life, all of these different things are going to happen. You got to figure out how to navigate those waters. So take that with you. That's all I have to give, Tremaine. I love it. I'm
That's good
glad,
stuff. That's
Keontae, for
good
inviting
stuff.
us on.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Man, that's good stuff. Founder Fridays, y'all. I'm trying to
Yes,
tell you.
sir.
We dropping bars out here, man. If y'all are missing it, y'all are missing it. I know some people gonna catch it on the replay, but thank you so much to our guests, Devon Corbin and Sheila Jones. And Sheila's actually one of our sponsors for Founder Fridays. So she'll be sponsoring one of the rocket pitches up and coming. So you'll see more of her. She joins all the time. So please use Sheila as a resource. She is a wealth of knowledge and information. And Devon jumps on from time to time as well. So make sure that you connect with our guests. So Founder Fridays. Listen, next week is pitch week. Pitch week. Tell a friend.
Yes,
We're sending
sir.
everything out on what? Monday, Tuesday. All the flyers are going to go out. We're pitching next week. Our sponsors are the Entrepreneurship Learning Institute and Nifty. So please, please, please get involved with the Rocket Pitch next week. Good stuff happening. Anything you want to add, Keontae, as we roll out of here?
Yeah, we all good. I just want to say, Dev, Sheila, y'all the MVPs. So many gems. Like, I'm seeing the comments blow up, a lot of love. And so this is perfect because we have Rocket Pitch next week. So everybody register, utilize these gems that you got. We're going to drop the recaps on YouTube and social media. So make sure y'all follow the YouTube, social media, all of that, so that y'all can take notes, get these gems down, and then put them into work next week so you can get some money for your business. So all that to say, Dev, Sheila, we appreciate y'all. Y'all are amazing. Have a great Friday, everybody. Anything else, Tremaine, Clay, anybody else got anything before we close?
Founder Fridays. Y'all have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, y'all.
Have a great weekend, y'all.
All right.